It was a busy day for the Washington Commanders ahead of the NFL trade deadline, sending Montez Sweat to the Chicago Bears and Chase Young to the San Francisco 49ers. For more on what's going down in Washington is David Harrison at dharrison82, host of Locked On Commanders every Monday through Friday. David, let me just ask you the question straight up, man. Like, sending off both of those top edge rushers on a very talented defensive line, what's going on in Washington?
It's all about the future. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's all about putting this team on a path to be better. And everybody kind of hoped that, with Ron Rivera being able to just focus on football and not having to answer all the ownership questions and deal with off-field drama and all this stuff, that it would happen. And, it's another year of thinking that Jack Del Rio's defense was going to be a top 10, top 8, top 5 unit.
Yeah.
And that's not just external opinions. Like we talked to guys on the team and that's what they wanted to be. I remember coming out of Arizona in week one, we're coming out of FedEx, the win over Arizona in week one. We talked to guys like John Allen about how the defense really stood up as the offense kind of struggled under a young quarterback like Sam Howell. And then the response across the board was, we are going to be the leaders on this team. Well, 5 times this year, they've given up 30 or more points, and Sam Howell has actually had to score 30 or more points to try to be competitive. And they're still losing when they're putting up 30 points back or twice against teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. So it actually has turned into the offense a lot of times is the catalyst for success. And if the defense is not going to be the catalyst for success, then there's no reason to pay Montez Sweat and Chase Young market value that they're going to want. So if we can't pay them, or we're not going to pay them, let's get what we can in 2024 and not wait for compensatory picks in 2025.
Very practical approach by the Washington Commanders, of course, owned by the same guy that coined the trust the process moniker over with the Philadelphia 76ers. So with trusting the process, David, where does this team now get its pass rush on its defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, it's Casey Toohill is going to step in, presumably to Montez Sweat's side on the left end spot on the defensive line, and it'll be James Smith-Williams stepping into the right side, and then Andre Jones, their 7th round pick, who's gotten a little bit of play here in the regular season. KJ Henry out of Clemson, their 5th round pick, who really hasn't gotten any play this season. They're certainly going to, they're going to get more of a rotational role, and that's really, again, part of the future planning. Now it's time to see, can James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill lead the defensive end group and play next to John Allen, play next to Daron Payne, or do they need to move on to Andre Jones and KJ Henry and see what they have there and then decide kind of what they're going to do in the offseason after that? That's really what this is all about. And all year long, we've been saying, Ross, that this Washington Commanders team is not devoid of talent. They're devoid of teeth. They have no bite to them. They got a lot of bark. They got a lot of glitz and glamour and all that, but there's no bite to them. Well, Casey Toohill has 4 sacks on this team. He's 3rd on the team in sacks. He's played 20% of the defensive snaps. Now, part of that, he's fresh when he comes on the field, right? Sure. And the opposing offensive line doesn't do as much scouting on a Casey Toohill than they do on a Montez Sweat. But 4 sacks when you're playing 20% of the snaps is still impressive no matter how you slice it. So if Casey Toohill can turn that energy, turn that production into more production on the field, then it's possible that these 2 guys get a contract and it allows the Commanders to maybe spread some draft resources across the board somewhere else.
Yeah, still a talented interior, a couple players there, of course, to pay attention to as well. So I could see that this Washington Commanders team could have a lot going on its defensive line. What's next for this team as they move forward throughout the rest of the season? Because they've been competitive in some big games. Is this a team that's still looking to compete, or are they embracing the sort of, let's call it retool as opposed to rebuild?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, look, the team is going to fight. You know what I mean? This team is going to fight. They're going to want to win. They're going to want to play. And I think that, you look across the board and how they've lost games, got blown out against the Buffalo Bills. Nobody quit. And I think that's the key, right? Nobody in that locker room ever quit. None of the coaches ever stopped coaching. Really bad, heartbreaking losses to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, nobody ever stopped coaching. Blown out by the Chicago Bears. Still, nobody stopped coaching. Nobody stopped playing. Really, I mean, the problem on the defense has been more so the middle of the field in the secondary than it has been the pass rush. So really, it's about Jack Del Rio figuring that part out. And unfortunately, Chase Young and Montez Sweat, even for the production they were putting on the field, 11.5 total sacks, if my math is correct off the top of my head. The secondary was still getting torched, you know what I mean? So you have to have some back end coverage to help the front end, as well as I do. The defense, it's a front to back to front type of system. So Jack Del Rio still got to figure out the back end of his defense, because if he doesn't, it doesn't matter what James Smith-Williams, Case Toohill do. It's going to be the same results.
Yeah, well, if you want to keep up with more going on with the Washington Commanders and their busy trade deadline and everything afterwards, find out how you can trust the process with Locked On Commanders every single Monday through Friday here as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. David, thanks so much for coming through, bud.
Thank you.